Welcome back to KDTV. I'm proud to present Even Tangen Heggenes, CEO of Nabobil. Welcome to BI.
Thanks for having me.
Within a 3-year period, within a year, you managed to get 50,000 registered users, 3,000 cars, and 13,000 registered transactions. How did all this start?
So nabobil launched back in September last year in 2015, and we started this company based on the fact that there are 2.5 million cars in Norway that are standing still 95% of the time. And that combined with that the service that we're providing is working in most of the countries elsewhere, we decided to give it a go in Norway.
Very interesting. From what you just told me, would there be anything you wished you'd done differently to begin with?
Well, I think it's hard to go back and say that that it didn't work or anything like that. But of course, there has been things that we could have done differently. And I think that one of the things, looking back in hindsight, that we would have done would be to focus more on getting more cars on the platform at an early stage. In the beginning, we were focusing on both, building both sides of the marketplace with supply and demand. But I think that I would have had a heavier push on the cars early on if we could go back.
Yeah, that's great. Your company is showing very, very impressive results. What's your future vision and what are your plans to get there?
Well, I think that what we've seen so far is just the beginning. Yeah. Now we've had 1 year under our belts to show that what we're doing is it's sustainable. It's a viable business model. Yeah. But I think that we have a lot of growth ahead of us. First of all, we have so much we want to do with our technology to make it easier for people to both rent out and rent cars. Yeah. I have this vision that we will end up somewhere where you just click a button and you have rented the car from the neighbor. But we have also ambitions to go outside of the country. We see that we're onto something here with a good fundament. So why can we not take this to other places around the world? Yeah. But most of all, I think working with our customers, listening to what are their needs. The team, me and the people working with this, we're in our small nabobil bubble all the time. So it's important that we listen from the users and not just think that we have the right answer all the time. Yeah.
And as you said, on a more global perspective, you're up against runners like Get Around and Relay Trade. How can you compete with them?
I'm not sure if we have to compete, because what we see with the peer-to-peer car rentals towards companies like Airbnb in the accommodation sector is that there's not necessarily a need to be a global player, because we see that there are super local ecosystems where people rent out and rent in the same neighborhood. While on Airbnb you see that the Norwegians are traveling to France and the French are traveling to New York, but here we see that the locals are renting from the locals. So I think that we can build strong local presence in anywhere in the world pretty much, but we don't need to be everywhere.
It's interesting, it's fantastic. The 1st of April, you announced a new project, so to say, Neighbor Wife. How's that going?
Well, that was 1st of April, April Fools. We did that just to get some, fun attention. We have no intentions of starting that service, but we get questions of this all the time. Are you looking into other sectors? But I think that it's really important to become really good at one sector before you go elsewhere. Yeah. And we could, use our technology into different verticals, but I think that we need to champion the car sector before we consider anything else. And that's why we now focus 100% on the cars and making it easier for our users.
Yeah. So maybe in the future then?
I think that's way ahead of ourselves, but so that's not something that I'm spending much time on considering these days.
Yeah, understandable. For students at BI, given your experience, what advices would you give to become a successful entrepreneur?
Wow, the $1 million question. Yeah. No, I think that there are a few things that is really important. And I think first of all is hard work. That's a given in anything you're doing. But I think the fact that you put yourself in a position where you're not afraid of failing. I think there's too many people that are afraid of failing. They are afraid of handing something over that is not 100%. If you look at the nabobil as an example, our tech team, they spent 6 months coding the platform to get it ready. And that was 6 months of coding besides their full-time job. So they did it in the evenings and on the weekends. And the product that we launched was barely good enough to walk on its own feet. So it's not the perfect solution, but for us to be the first mover, be the first one out with the service, that was the key to succeeding. So being super lean methodology, not being too focused on everything needing to be perfect, because perfect is probably not needed. So work hard, just push something out there, get it done, get it ready. And then, of course, also have the ability to change. Instead of, there's very few people, I think, I'm not at least smart enough to foresee too much what's happening in the future. So instead of making a roadmap that this is what I will do for the next 18 months, in my world, that's insane because things are moving so fast. And my former boss at Airbnb, he told me that always be planning, but never have a plan. And I think there's a lot in that thinking that, of course, you need to think ahead, but you shouldn't stick to that plan no matter what it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure to follow the progress of nabobil. That also concludes our interview. This is KDTV, our final interview for today. To watch the full interviews, go to karrieredagene.no. In addition, we would like to give a huge thanks to all of our KDTV sponsors.